This road, I wanna see the day when love shakes the ground and the walls that separate come tumbling down. Babe, that day be today when together we say, let love shake the ground. Love shake the ground. I wanna see the day when we stand tall and the heavy hand of oppression's finally gone. May that day be the day when together we say, precious Lord, come lead us on. Come lead us on. Precious Lord, come lead us on. Come lead us on. May that day be the day when together we say, precious Lord, come lead us on. We have gathered here together with the one agenda, and it is you alone, one one agenda, and it is you alone. One agenda, and it is you alone. Even so, come. Just one agenda, and it is you alone. Just one agenda, and it is you alone. Even so, come. Oh, presence come and change our vision. Eyes on you. Come now, we're desperate. Say, come now, we're ready, Lord. You say, say, come now, we're open, Lord. You say, say, come now, we're desperate, Lord. You say. Sing, come now, we're ready. Come now, we're open. Come now, we're desperate.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday and welcome to Reservoir Church, our beloved Virch service here this Sunday morning, the final Sunday of October. My name is Kate. I'm on staff here at Reservoir, and it's a total joy to be with you today. Ben's, fun to see the Ben's on. Hi, Braden. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Devin. Hi, Sinclair's. Hi, Marilyn. Hi, Ruby. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Tom. Hi to everyone who signed on today. Feel free to drop in the chat a warm hello to one another if you would like to make your presence known here in this space today. You can let us know how you're doing, where you're calling in from, anything you want. Again, my name's Kate. I'm on staff here at Reservoir. I use she, her pronouns, and it is a delight to be with you today. Happy Sunday on this All Hallows Eve. The eve of Dia de los Muertos for folks that are remembering and celebrating family and ancestors. Blessings to you this day too. Today I'm here in Cambridge and just want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the land that I am standing on, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket peoples, the original habits of this land, and we pay respect to the people past and present, and honor this land itself, which remains sacred to these people. And we welcome all of you without exception to be here in this beautiful community of online gathering, that together we might discover the love of Jesus, the joy of living, and the gift of community, that we might taste and see of a little of that today and carry it with us as we move into all of our spaces and places for the rest of the day. By way of our Virch service today, in a moment, I will share a few announcements. Then we'll hear a song from our band, get to sing together. And as we gather ourselves today, Ivy will be on with a spiritual practice. I'll be back with a sermon. We'll have our prayers of the people before we have our final song and a benediction as we go. To get into our announcements for today, the first thing that we have going on today to announce to you is actually something for next week. At the end of our Virch service, there will be a Zoom room that you can join to chat about ways that we can kind of continue online connection and community building here in the Virch community. We had our wave call for a lot of this past year, and just kind of imagining together what the future of staying connected and finding some joy and fellowship together can look like. So Anne and Vidya will be hosting that gathering, and you can email them by reaching out to Ann, A-N-N, Bakun, B-A-K-U-N, @gmail.com for the Zoom link. That will be happening right after Virch around noon next week on the 7th of November. It also starting, we have our celebration today, 6-part
We are just having a couple technical difficulties. We will be right back.
And we're back. Hello. Thanks for that brief moment of internet disappearance, and it's good to be back with you. So I had been talking about spiritual formation. Maybe you heard that, maybe not, depending on when my internet actually went out. But we do have these workshops coming up that are starting next week on the 7th of November. In these 6-part workshops, you will have a chance to come into different practices around spiritual formation, and particularly how listening to ourselves, listening to others, listening to God, and being listened to by all of these ones can be a way to continue to grow in the love of God, in kind of coming into understandings of who we are and in connection to one another. These workshops will also be inviting us to think about how this practice of listening, this deep listening, this generous listening, can inform the communities that we love, the places that we lead, whether in our work, our community groups, or even in our families or households. So come and join us. Again, we will have these workshops. There are 6 of them. They'll be happening once a month between November through May. And you're welcome to come to one of them. You're welcome to come to a few of them. You're welcome to come to all 6. You can RSVP through the link that's in the chat. And you can also email Ivy at Reservoir Church with any questions that you have. In this first gathering next week, we'll be thinking about how understanding and seeing the image of God in ourselves and in one another can attune us to, again, places where God is moving, and we might find one another in the midst of our lives. Next announcement is for anyone who might be coming to the in-person service next week in Cambridge. A note to you that the Cambridge Half Marathon will be running next Sunday morning, which means there'll just be some traffic around the city. It starts up in Cambridge side, and then it snakes down through Cambridgeport, or through Kendall Square, Cambridgeport, before it hits the river, and it runs all the way down the Charles River to where the river bends at the Elliott Bridge and BB&N. So if you're planning to come to the in-person service next Sunday at 9:30 on the Reservoir campus, just note that there might be a little bit of traffic that you'll be contending with. If there are street closures, there'll be well-marked detours, and Cambridge city officials will be out helping you get to where you need to go. And one other note on kind of things that are happening next week. Saturday night, Sunday morning, those early hours are when daylight savings ends and we fall back. So set your clock back an hour before you go to bed on Saturday night. And again, just notes for what time and when, and maybe traffic that you'll hit as you make your way through next Sunday. Next, we have a community art project that will be on display at Reservoir Church through our Advent season. Everyone is invited to participate. You don't have to think of yourself as an established artist, but you are welcome to come and create something that will hang in our dome gallery space, where everyone can appreciate and come into a sense of story around the theme, which is waiting and expectation. So as we're coming into the season of watching and waiting in Advent, you are invited to kind of create art in the spirit of this. And all the art is due at Reservoir Church by the 21st of November. You can bring it in person, or you can have it shipped and delivered here, but please make sure it arrives by the 21st. It needs to be framed and frameable. So we're asking for kind of 2-dimensional art that can hang on a wall. Email Matt at Reservoir Church with any questions that you have or for more information. And one other thing I want to let you know, remind you of, we are having a do-it-yourself retreat that is happening today, inviting folks to explore public murals and public art throughout the city of Boston, and to see where the spirit of God and the spirit of creativity and images of justice and goodness and connection and the world that we live in and the world that we long for, to come into these images all around our city. So actually on our campus, so at 170 Wren Ave in Cambridge, you are welcome to come by anytime after Virch until about 1 o'clock or so. And we have a table here where you can gather the materials for this do-it-yourself retreat. We'll have little gifts for you to take on your way to, and welcome you to come together. So again, that's today. If you want to pop by here on campus to get your materials for the do-it-yourself retreat. That is it for our announcements. Let me say a prayer for us before we move into our first song. God of all comfort, God of Octobers, of the changing leaves, of the lands that we stand on, the people that have gone before us. We love you and we give thanks for the goodness of this day. God, I ask that you would be richly dwelling in our bodies and our spirits, in the places between us today, that you would richly dwell in this online space, this Virch, where we come to meet one another, come to meet a sense of your love here this morning. Would you be a good and kind companion to us today? Amen. We now will head into our first song.
In the morning you sing over me, and I receive your mercy. Your faithfulness is clear to see, constant every day. In the morning you sing over me, and I receive your mercy. Your faithfulness is clear to see. It's like the sunrise, constant every day. 'Cause every breath I breathe an invitation to believe you are creating something good. And though this season doesn't tell my story, I know you'll move mountains for me. 'Cause you're just that good. So I'll give thanks to God when I don't have enough. 'Cause you're more than enough. You know what I need. You know what I Oh, God knows what we need. God knows what we need. We don't even have to worry. No, we don't even have to worry.
Hey everyone, good morning. I'm Ivy. If we haven't met, I'm a pastor here on staff. It's so good to be with you this morning. I hope wherever you are, there's a bit of blue sky poking through after kind of a soggy week. I'm going to walk us through a spiritual practice this morning. It's a moment in our services where we try to carve for you to have your own experience of God's love from exactly where you're at, to give yourself a chance for self-reflection and also joining and communing with God. So if you've been logging in the last few weeks, you've noticed that we are in this fall series called The Table, How Jesus Gathers. And we've been sort of probing at some questions as we look at these stories, mostly out of Luke, of what are the tables that Jesus gathers at? Who does he invite? What is the shape of these tables? What are the tables set with? And sort of what is Jesus communicating in all of that? What systems or culture or religious structures is he trying to flip? And so part of our exploration is to ask those same questions of ourselves and sort of live into those questions at our own tables and our own settings presently. We've been using for a few weeks this spiritual practice of Visio Divina as a way to look at some expressions of tables through image and praying with those images. This week we will use an image, but I'm actually going to invite us into a different spiritual practice as we do that. So in just a couple minutes, Kate will come back and walk us through this sermon this morning around Martha, Mary, and Jesus. And it really is, again, has lots of layers and ways that you can reflect as she shares. But there is this theme of sort of a lot of hands in the kitchen, so to speak. Hands that are tired and exhausted, hands that are weary, they've carried a lot, they're looking to unburden, and hands that are longing to be close to just what it is they need, which is Jesus. So as I walk you through this practice this morning, I sort of want to give you that backdrop if it feels helpful to you. The practice that we'll do this morning is really built on this ancient Middle Ages practice called recollection. It's what Quakers also call centering down. This invitation to become still, to enter into silence that sort of recreates, draws together our fragmented mind to become centered. So I invite you to look at this image. Sort of take a prayerful posture, whatever that is for you. Maybe it's just to quiet your mind. Maybe it is to close your eyes, to lean back into whatever you're sitting upon and let it support the gravity of your weight. I'm going to invite you to take your hands and place them down, either on your lap or the surface near you. And I'm just going to read a verse and invite you to pray with that verse, or just to let the words of the verse roll through you. It's from Psalm 55:22. And it says, "Cast your burdens on God, and God will sustain you." Cast your burdens on God, and God will sustain you. And so symbolically, with your hands down, you're sort of indicating any desire or longing to turn over burdens, concerns, anxieties, stress, whatever feels weighty to you. You're symbolically turning that over to God. Some of those might come quick to mind, stresses, the worries. Others may sort of be inside of you without that form of words, but you can feel it. Give yourself space, even as you turn your hands over, to recognize or notice a sense of release. You may feel it in your hands, or even as you're in your shoulders, as they sort of relax. And when you're ready, you can turn your palms up. Symbolically, again, sort of ready, willing to receive whatever Jesus might have for you in that need, in that stress, in that worry. You're symbolically sort of gesturing that you're open to whatever Jesus might have for you. I invite you to do this practice at any point in your week. Again, just a way to center down, sort of get in touch with what's the weight you might be feeling, how are you feeling burdened, and the invitation to pray with Jesus, to just be silent if you need, to be still, and then to turn your hands up when you're ready to receive whatever that might be that Jesus has for you. Let me pray for us before I turn it over to Kate. Jesus, we thank you that your table is so large, so encompassing, to hold all of our very unique needs and our very unique ways of relating to you. But that you have this steady invitation, this steady question to us, asking us, what is it that you need right now? What is it that you need right now? And you give us that question as a gift, a way to connect and draw closer to you. And so, Jesus, this morning, as we hear more words and sing more songs and pray more prayers, may we feel your presence close, the union of you next to us, even beyond all those words, a spirit that communicates and joins us close. In your name, amen. I'll pass it over to Kate now.
Thank you, Ivy, and thank you all. As we come into our down centerings and our up centerings. Our scripture for today comes from Luke 10:38-42. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at Jesus's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, Do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her." The Christian churches, camps, and conferences that I grew up attending loved this story. I mean, just absolutely loved this story. If intimacy with God was our highest aspiration, our highest ambition, well, then this story confirmed our call, which was to sit at Jesus's feet, to listen closely and to gaze adoringly, to be like Mary, as close as we could be to Jesus. Because here's Martha. She's busy, she's distracted, she's wanting Mary to come help her with the hosting tasks, and she pulls Jesus in to get him on her side. But Jesus admonishes Martha, "Let your sister be. She's sitting at my feet." She cares less about serving and more about connection, about love, nearness, and attention. She has chosen the better part. Songs about Mary filled the gatherings of my youth. Even if I don't read this story in the same way anymore, to this day, at least once a month, this song from my teenage years will pop into my head. "Let it be said of me, she chose the better part. Let it be said of me, she loved with all her heart." I was recently asked to think about what I would want on my gravestone when I die, and immediately, "She loved with all her heart" popped into my head. My quick second thought was, no, that's not actually what I want my gravestone to say, but that refrain of "let it be said of me" is so sticky for me. For much of Western and Eurocentric Christian history, this has been a common interpretation. My communities were revamping interpretations as old as those of church leaders like Origen, an early theologian who wrote in the 2nd and 3rd centuries that this story represented two ways of approaching a life of faith: a life of action, like Martha, or a life of contemplation, like Mary, service or love, that which is temporary or that which is eternal. I've come to notice some dynamics and some consequences that are both in this reading and this way of reading it. For one, this interpretation reduces two women in these stories to nothing more than spiritual tropes about how to live in the world. It spiritualizes stories, kind of stripping them of their own agency and their own humanity in and of sisters and against to live. And then there's this whole weird triangulation dynamic that happens as well. This reporting structure where Martha has to go get Jesus to intervene on behalf of Mary. And why do the authors think that that's a dynamic that needs to happen with these sisters in the telling of the story? So there are all these kind of weird and maybe not so great dynamics that come with this interpretation that I grew up with. And I wonder today if there actually might be a more liberative story that we can find in the words and actions of Mary, Martha, and Jesus. And I wonder today if we can maybe even reimagine some of the dynamics of the story to understand a different way of coming around the table. We are here in our fall series about gathering at the table and going to see what these ones might have to say to us today. So a couple of years ago at Reservoir Church, at our in-person sanctuary and service, We came to the end of a service one day and people were hanging out in the space after church saying hello to each other. And one of my all-time favorite Reservoir interactions happened on this particular day. Now, I do need to note ahead of time that nowhere in the service had we talked about Mary and Martha. This wasn't any kind of theme or story that we had been engaging. But I have this wonderful friend who I look up to, who is just a really like mentoring, wonderful presence in my life. And she comes up to me out of nowhere with no context and no greeting. And she just runs up to me and she says, Katie, about Mary and Martha. When Jesus says that Mary has chosen the better part, it's not about the better part. It's not about what she was doing or sitting at his feet. It's that she chose. It's that she made a choice. I was so caught by this. I was in a season of understanding what it means to come deeper into choice, to exercise my agency, my authority. And in the span of 20 seconds, this friend took a familiar story and gave me a whole new way to see it. That it's not the better part, which was Mary sitting at Jesus's feet. It's that she chose what she needed. And this brings us to the heart of what we are talking about today. That the story of Mary, Martha, and Jesus is an invitation to consider what we need. You are worried and distracted by many things, but there is need of only one thing, Jesus says. Some translations will say few things are needed, or really only one. There is need of only one thing. One thing is needed. And this is where I sense that choice and need meet each other. We get to pay attention to what we most need. In these lives that we live, where so many of us are overextended, where we're afraid, where we're stressed and stretched beyond our means, where we are worried and distressed and distracted by so many things that it might actually feel like we need a million things. Could it actually be even in this place that what we need is as simple as one thing? And is it possible to choose what we need? There is a powerful and simple question that I have discovered to help in this process. What do you need today? It's a question that invites us to quiet ourselves enough to ask the question of ourselves and of another, to listen to another's response, and to respond for ourselves. I know two people that are colleagues that ask each other this question at the start of every single day. Before they get into their work, they look at each other and they take a turn asking, what do you need today? They come into voice. They listen to their own self and what is arising within or around them that they need for the day. And then they listen to each other. They listen to what the other needs. It's not so that they can supply or provide what the other needs, but to have a place to practice asking and naming what they need. One of my loved ones and I ask each other this question a couple of times a month. We don't do it every day, but we do it now and then. And it takes a couple beats to quiet down and to sense what we may need. And when the question first hits the air, I tend to first end up thinking about my to-do list for the day. I need to call this person. I need to prep for this meeting. I need to read this article. I need to get this paper started. I need to check in with my parents. I need to pack my food before I go. I need to make sure that I'm organized and ready for this string of people that I'm going to talk to today. But the question isn't, what do I need to do today? The question is, what do I need today? Okay, so how do I quiet? Okay, there's a lot that's happening today. Maybe I just need a little bit of focus to work on one of these things, even just for the next hour. Maybe things are feeling really crammed and piled on. Okay, I sense that I actually just need a little spaciousness today. I don't know where I'm going to get it, but I think that's what I need. I'm feeling really nervous or anxious about this particular conversation. I need some grace and some hope. Maybe I even need to sense that I'm worthy and loved, even in this moment. So that's what it is. It's kind of quieting, coming into the sense, what do I need today? And then listening to my loved one as they share back what they need for the day. Not then to then have to go and overfunction to meet their needs, but that we can together put our needs on the table. I find that part of this quieting that I find that I need to even be able to ask myself this question, what do I need today? Comes because like so much of what we actually need, we feel in our body and our spirit. But in the midst of the chaos of our days, of this unrelenting pace that is true for so many that I know, it's so easy to live out of touch with our needs. Our bodies and our spirits, though, they have a lot to say if we can pause and listen. Tapping into what we may need and what we need may come naturally for some, but for others, it's a pretty challenging task. And so it makes it all the more meaningful to be able to articulate what we need. Perhaps for reasons of race or gender or age or birth order or our family system of origin or our personality, some of us have been socialized to spend our days responding to the needs of others. Among those, some even have a hypersensitivity to others' needs and might even be admired for having a gift of being able to anticipate what other people need. For folks who have a life that asks them to take care of others, coming in to your own sense of what you might need might feel so far down the line as you think of so many people's needs, even just to make it through your day. Other people might live lives that are really focused on something external, maybe like work ambition, or maybe just like the external happenings of a day, that coming into this internal place of sensing what you need might be a pretty unfamiliar thing. But I wonder what it would be like if Mary and Martha had come to sit at the table together and ask each other, what do you need today? And that when Jesus arrived or anyone else that showed up with him, they asked them to come join them at this table, to ask together, what do you need today? I like imagining that together there at the table, they could trust an abundance that could provide for each one's needs, that they could bear witness to what each one was holding, what they were needing in love and in care, without having to become the means for each need to be met. What if they could creatively speak into each other's lives to imagine together how they could take care of what was needed to do, maybe actually getting the meal ready or making sure that the beds were made, so that everyone could actually have what they need? What if they encouraged each other to choose the thing they most needed? Because the demands of the world will always push up against what we need. So can we help each other choose what we need? And can we invite Jesus and others to join us at this table of naming what we need? I think of a friend who's made a decision to not respond to others' needs for her to be a strong and steady presence. She's realized that she is in a season and in a body that needs softness. And she's choosing relationships, pacing, work, honor, where to send first witness and offer connection and support. In these places, people are sensing the thing that they need. They're bringing it to the table and they're naming it to the ones that they can trust. Needs are not distinct to individuals alone, but needs also exist within units of people and in communities. While we are asking the question, what do you need today? Can we get in the habit of asking together too, what does our family need today? What does our household need in this season? What does our community group need? What does our work team need? What does our church need? Systems have needs too. And if we can start listening to what the group body might need, if we can do this collectively, if we can discern this together, we might be able to come into more life-giving and life-affirming ways of being with each other, of choosing our movements and also our rest. My hope for us is that our tables can be a place where we ask each other, what do you need today? What does our table need today? Where we can encourage each other to choose what we need. That we can sense the companionship of Mary and Martha and Jesus bearing their needs before each other. I do want to note, and this is something that priest and writer Henry Nouwen reflects on, is that the table is a place of profound intimacy. It's a place where we bring and bear ourselves, and naming our needs can be a deeply intimate thing. And because of this very intimacy that happens at a table, the table can also be a place where we experience the profound absence of intimacy, when tension or disconnection or loss is present. So for any here today whose tables feel like they don't hold enough trust or enough connection or enough presence to ask and be asked, what do you need today? I pray that Jesus would meet you at your table. I pray that Jesus would be preparing a table before you right where you are, perhaps in the midst of all that is painful, maybe even in the valley of the shadow of death, maybe even in the presence of your enemies. And that in time, you would find a table where you can be present and others can be present to what one another both and all need. I pray this for all of us, that we would find this place to share with each other our needs, not so that then the others around the table are responsible for fixing them or solving them, but to participate in this human and divine act of naming what we need, and to practice and encourage each other to choose what we need, to sense Jesus near us, coming close to our need, perhaps even to the one or the few things that we need today. Let me pray for us. Jesus, would you be with us today in what we need? May your Spirit help us sense and tend to what we need. May we lovingly listen to one another's needs. And may we trust the abundance of your love to supply all that we need. Amen. We'll come over to our prayers of the people next. Ivy will come up for this part.
Thank you, Kate. We're going to, much in line with what Kate just shared with us, come into a space of a collective table where we can hold one another's needs and hopes together. This is often in many Christian traditions called the prayers of the people. So I'll be inviting you to name your hopes, your longings, your needs in just a few minutes. So if you're not super close to your computer, but would like to be a part of this, you can make a move to get a little closer at this point. Also, you can change your settings now if you want. If you want your needs and prayers shown and held to everyone else. You can switch your chat setting to everyone, and you'll be all set up to go in just a couple minutes. First, I'll make space and silence for us, and then I'll walk us through a prayer, and then make time for all of us. In peace, we pray to you, O God. For all people in their daily life and work, for our families, friends, and neighbors, and for those who are alone. God, hear our prayer. For this community, our neighborhoods and cities and the world, for all who work for justice, freedom, and peace. God, hear our prayer. For all who are in danger, sorrow, or any kind of trouble, for the victims of hunger and fear, injustice, and oppression. God, hear our prayer. For the just and proper use of your creation, for peace and unity among all who seek to center their being on the love of Jesus, neighbor, and self. God, hear our prayer. As you're ready, you can start to add your prayer to the chat, and I'll read them aloud for the benefit and collective prayer of our community. We pray for safe traveling. Pray for those finding new jobs and careers, for the energy and transition that takes. We pray for those remembering loss in this season of remembrance. Pray for love, understanding, and patience, for strength and energy when we have none. Pray for all of those who are applying for college and for grad school, for the time and effort into those. We pray for those whose friends have family members and fathers who have passed, for the grieving process, for the Holy Spirit to be known and comfort and strength during that time. And we pray for all of those who were impacted by this week's nor'easter, those still awaiting power. Pray for those homeless, unhoused, and for those in need. We pray for all of these things spoken and for the all unspoken. God, hear our prayer. Jesus, we thank you again for all that you listen to in us, ones that we have named and been able to put to voice, and those that are still emerging, the prayers within us. Be our strength, be our comfort, be presence to us this week and today. In your name, amen. I'll have another song for you to worship along with.
Oh, you tell me that I am your own. You know my name, and you call me friend. You know my name. Say you know my name. You know my name. Oh, how you walk with me. Oh, how you walk with me. You talk with me. Oh, how you talk with me. Oh, how you tell me. Oh, how you tell me that I am your own. That I am your own. Oh, how you comfort me. Oh, how you comfort me. You counsel me. Oh, how you counsel me. You tell me. Oh, how you tell me that I am your own. That I am your own. Hey, you're a faithful God. Thank you for me. So no fire can burn me, no battle can turn me, no mountain can stop me. Why? Because you hold my hand. I'm walking in your victory, 'cause your power is within me. No giant can defeat me. Why? Because you hold my hand. So no fire can burn me, no battle can turn me, no mountain can stop me. Why? Because you hold my hand. I'm walking in your victory, 'cause your power is within me. No giant can defeat me. Why? Because you hold my hand. My name. You know my name. You know my name. You know my name. And oh, how you walk with me. Oh, how you talk with me. Oh, how you tell me that I am your own.
Praise be to a good God who knows what we need, who knows us by name. Let me pray for us as we head out today. Jesus, we give thanks for the wonder that it is to wake up to a new day. We thank you for this great gift of life. God, I pray that we would find companions along the way to whom we can name what we need. For those that are feeling lonely and uncompanioned, would you meet people in that place of longing? And Jesus, would you come close to all of us this day? We thank you for your goodness, your kindness, and your faithfulness, and ask that you would supply us to walk with love, walk with attention, walk with care towards ourselves and to the people around us as we go this week. Amen. Blessings to you this Sunday. I hope that it is a wonderful day ahead for you and all the nooks and crannies that we find ourselves here, those of us here at Birch today. Again, for anyone who is local to the Cambridge and Boston area, we are having our in-person do-it-yourself walk through the city, see some murals, see what comes up for you, retreat today. So you can come to our campus here in Cambridge in the next hour or so. We'll be here until about 1 o'clock, and you can get your materials and guide and a little bit of a gift as you head out for any retreating that you might want to do today. If you aren't able to make it today, but would like to get the materials, you can drop by the church office anytime this week. We'll have those for you. Blessings as you go. Thank you all. Happy Sunday to this wonderful Virch group today. Blessings. Bye.